But I want to talk to Danielle James now, who's Head of Pay and Reward at Revolution Bars, which is a finalist in the British HR Awards for Wellness Initiative of the Year in recognition of their suicide prevention work. And this is a horrible report, really, really worrying report about a survey of people UK hospitality workers, 2,000 of them, by a mental health tool called Ripple. It's pulled workers in the hospitality industry to raise awareness of World Suicide Prevention Day, which was this week. Chefs, bartenders, front of house staff, waiting staff, 59% of them have struggled with their mental health. 1 in 2 have thought of suicide, self-help, or other harmful negative thoughts. Danielle, I find this all too believable given what hospitality staff have been through in the last few years, because there's so many people, especially with lockdown, who had a quote-unquote good lockdown. They could work from home, they could work on their laptops, they could sit there in the warmth and be fine. But actually, the people who are the backbone of Britain, the hospitality workers, and also people who are in things like hairdressing, in plumbers, plasters, people who have to stand and work and be somewhere physically, well, they were screwed by all of this, and they've had a really rough time in the last few years. Danielle, what do you think, and what is your reaction to this?
Absolutely. I think COVID has definitely got a lot to answer for in terms of the ongoing impact that it's having on mental health, particularly in our industry. A lot of people who work within hospitality, we're social beings, social creatures. So most actually didn't have a great lockdown. Yep. That's a lot of the feedback.
Because if you do that job, you want to be amongst people. That's the way you are as a person.
Exactly. So they had a real tough time, and we're seeing, although we clearly know mental ill health is indiscriminate across everybody, but there's a reason why this is so important to talk about right now as a result of this study. We have 3.5 million hospitality workers in the UK, third largest employer as an industry, and 1 in 2 have had thoughts of suicide or self-harm. Like, that is an absolutely shocking and very distressing statistic. Now, there's the COVID element, as you mentioned. There are other elements where perhaps we are seeing a disproportionate impact in hospitality because of, typically low pay, over-indexing into alcohol, things like that, where we see people impacted more. But some of these stats are really, really scary, and that's why I'm keen to open the dialogue.
Does it accord with your experience at Revolution Bars, Danielle, talking to people, talking about what they've been through in the last few years, and presumably for you as well as a business, costs have gone up, energy costs, heating costs, a lot of pressure, a lot of people not eating food and so on, or food costs going up. I mean, it pressure on employers as well as employees, and all of them together, the pressures have mounted.
From an employer perspective, as you say, costs are mounting, headwinds have been really quite strong as a business, but it is a balancing act in kind of trying to make sure that you are getting the right level of pay to people in a typically low-paying industry, making sure there is the right protections in place for individuals, the right support. We have it's from one of the catalysts really of mental ill health can be financial worries.
Yeah, of course.
Often a precursor to mental ill health. So, and if we think about job stability in our industry at the moment, it's the best it's been for a couple of years since the fallout of COVID. But we're still at about 4 closures a day in hospitality in terms of licensed premises. So if you think as an individual, that level of job insecurity, that can also be compounding issues for individuals. So yeah, look, it's really challenging. We are not immune to those challenges. We have, as a business, recently had to close a number of our venues simply because they were not viable enterprises, which was really challenging, really difficult. But I think what's important is still being bold enough to say, we have our own challenges here, but it doesn't we need to still be cognizant of
yes.
the fact that we have a responsibility to acknowledge the epidemic, really, of mental ill health in hospitality and help to drive change forward.
And just as a final question, Danielle, I think you've got the right attitude. I'd love to have you on again and talk about this in greater detail. And if there are other things you want to talk about, I mean, talk to our producers and we'll bring you on again. What can we as consumers, as people who go to bars, who go to, hospitality venues, what can we do to try to just help in some way? Because, I really hope there are people watching and listening who treat bar staff and, waiters and waitresses with respect, and I know that's part of it, but is there more we can do to just try to make their day maybe a little bit better?
Absolutely. First of all, I would say kind of getting out to your pubs, your bars, your restaurants is number one. Part of that challenge in job security is clearly because we are struggling with guest base that's not returned to what it was pre-pandemic levels. So number one, just go to your local pub, your local bar, if you can. Then it's, smiling back, asking how people are. There's some really shocking stats about harassment of kind of guest on team member abuse. Yeah. So really some difficult stuff. I think the stat is 9 in 10 have experienced some sort of sexual challenge.
Oh, goodness. Well, that doesn't help with mental health either.
It does not.
Yeah. And sorry, Danielle, go ahead. We've got about 20 seconds. Go ahead.
I just wanted to say that in terms of what more we can do, if we check out Ripple's website, because I think that's really important as a charity that we work with. We have a campaign event coming up at the end of September in London, specifically for hospitality workers, because that's what we are calling for, some collective change at the moment.
Well, Danielle, thank you. That's Danielle James, who's Head of Pay and Reward at Revolution Bars. Another thing I would say is if you're out at a bar or a restaurant and your date is not nice to the waiter or waitress, well, that says quite a lot about them. So let's try to all be nice and remember to tip them if you can. Stay with us. We're going to do a whole hour on international affairs. We'll also get into